Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us for a couple moments, correspondent for the NFL Network, as OTAs have broke. The next time we'll really get into the teams per se around the NFL late July, but you always can talk a little NFL in the summertime. What's going on, pal?
Oh, doing great, Q. It's that time of year. It's going to be a little slow, but you hope there's no off-the-field news that we have to talk about.
No. I'll tell you, it's funny because I was talking to Josh before he went on the air, and you're right. I mean, after a while, I'm over the Kaepernick stuff, and I know he said other stuff over the weekend. It's almost as though I've resigned myself to say he's never getting a job again in the NFL. However he wants to slice it and dice it, if they want to say he's being blackballed or this or that, it's just, to me, it's not even a storyline anymore. People are going to make it a storyline, but you're right. There's a lot more to talk about. We saw a couple of very interesting moves by the Jets, right? Kind of shedding some salary, cutting players left and right. I think the Tennessee Titans, that's a big pickup to get Eric Decker. I think he's a good fit with that offense in that system. It gives Mariota another weapon from that slot standpoint. And when healthy, listen, he produced. He put up some big numbers when he was with the Jets, and Fitzpatrick was under center. But what are your thoughts on the Titans picking up another weapon?
Yeah, Q, I like that move by them, getting a veteran guy. He lives in that area. His wife's a country music singer, so I think he was a good fit all around. And when you talk about the talent-wise on the Tennessee Titans, you have Marcus Mariota already there. I know he's coming off a broken leg, but I think he can come along. His passing was getting a lot better, and they have the 1-2 punch in the backfield with Murray and Henry. So you do have some explosiveness now on this offense. That's what they're trying to bring there. Last year they had a winning record. And when you look at that division, Houston, Texas, we're on top of it, but let's face it, they're still kind of unproven at the quarterback position, and we're not sure what's going on with Andrew Luck and his shoulder with the Colts. So pretty wide-open division. That was a good move for Tennessee.
No, you're right about that. When you look at some of these young quarterbacks right now, and I brought this up yesterday, I still think, year number 2 is always important for a young quarterback. And we look at guys like Goff, we look at Wentz, we look at Prescott. And Prescott played exceptionally well. I don't get into the whole rankings of this or that because to me he's not the 5th best quarterback in the NFL. But for a rookie, he played exceptionally well. He was also took advantage and was the benefit of the fact that you had a great offensive line in Dallas with that ground game with Elliott. Then you look what Wentz was able to do. I want to talk a little bit for a moment about Jared Goff with the Rams because, people want to see if this kid can play or not. And there was, the debate last year, you might as well just start him. And then we saw you had to go through growing pains. So what are you hearing out of Rams camp right now? And, what's the expectation for this young man going forward?
Yeah, Q, and I was rewatching a lot of the Hard Knocks stuff that's playing right now on the NFL Network. And you saw that they had a lot of confidence in Jared Goff. And let's face it, a lot of growing pains with him. Greg Robinson, one of their underachieving offensive linemen, they just got rid of him, sent him off to the Lions basically for nothing. And that line just was not protecting him. And you also saw that in terms of Todd Gurley and this step he took back at the running back position. So this team has a lot of offensive power with Gurley, Tavon Austin, and Goff, and some other guys coming there like Cooper Kupp coming from the draft. They have some guys in there that can make some plays, but let's face it, that is a very tough division for this team that they're playing in right now with Seattle being there and the Cardinals. And we'll see how they come forward, but I think they are going to take some steps forward, getting acclimated to L.A., and now I think they're going to be one of the top teams in that market because they have to compete with the Chargers.
You mentioned in the NFC East with the Rams, and we know the Seahawks went in 10 last year. What about Arizona? Because it seems like, again, on paper, they should be right there and competitive with the head coach, and you look at the quarterback position as well with Palmer, who's not getting any younger. But, I mean, out of all those teams right now in the NFC West, who would be that team that could potentially compete with Seattle? Because I'm going to dismiss the 49ers. So I guess the only team you would say would be the Cardinals.
You're probably right there. The 49ers in a total rebuild situation, Sean McVay coming over, and they really don't have a quarterback. But in terms of talking about the Arizona Cardinals, they are in a hot seat. Their general manager, Steve Keim, has built a very nice team out there. But let's face it, with Bruce Arians, an older coach, a guy who probably only has 1 or 2 more years left as a head coach, and Carson Palmer, an older quarterback, a quarterback who's been beat up and did not play well in the playoffs when they needed him. The time is running out on both of them. So we're going to see if they're able to step up. They have a lot of offensive firepower on that team. You got to start with David Johnson, the all-world running back who really is going to light up a lot of fantasy football leagues this season, and Larry Fitzgerald closing out his career. So a lot of pieces in place at Arizona. But you talked about the key thing. They have to beat Seattle with some consistency. Those teams do not like each other, and I always look forward to their matchups.
The Browns won one game last year. They finished 1-15, but yet there seems to be a little bit of buzz surrounding the Browns, what they were able to do in the draft, some of the offseason acquisitions. I mean, they stabilized several positions in free agency and the draft. They actually bolstered up their offensive line. You added a couple players in the first round. You draft Deshaun Kaiser. I'm just wondering, it always comes down to the quarterback play. So with that being said, when the season starts in September, who do you believe is going to be the starting quarterback for the Browns?
Yeah, Coach Richardson has said all along it's an open competition, and it's going to be real interesting to me to see how they handle the Brock Osweiler situation. Let's face it, they really gave the Broncos some help there in taking the Texans and taking a guy that was just not a good fit for them, and he's being paid a lot of money. They're going to take a long look at him. I think Osweiler may get the first chance in training camp, and then they have Cody Kessler, a guy who's just pretty much just your basic quarterback. So if I had to say out of the three of them, I'll say Osweiler will be the quarterback to start with, but Kaiser will be warming up with the bullpen. The only thing with Kaiser is, talked to a lot of scouts when he was coming out of Notre Dame, he just lacks a lot of consistency in his game. Did not look that great in minicamp, so he's got a lot to learn. But there are some pieces there like Corey Coleman and Kenny Britt coming over to that team. So we'll see if this team is able to grow.
All right, let's switch gears to the NFC East for a moment. And I think there's so many question marks surrounding all these teams in the NFC East because the Eagles brought in a bunch of new weapons offensively. The Giants bring in Marshall. They still technically didn't address that offensive line. Their defense is going to be there. We know their defense will probably be a top 5 defense. Dallas, they lose a lot of their secondary, but they replenished their defense in other key positions. You look at Prescott and Elliott, and then you got the situation in Washington where it just seems as though there's a belief that Kirk Cousins is the quarterback going forward, but yet maybe if you gave the franchise or the ownership group truth serum, maybe they're still not sold on Kirk Cousins. Look, I know it's only June, but right now on paper, who's your favorite in the NFC East?
Yeah, Q, and it's great that I cover this division because this is probably going to be the most competitive division in an NFL, I think, this season. And you talked about all the quarterbacks. They're all pretty much lumped together. I know you have some younger guys coming along in Dallas and Philadelphia, but let's see what Eli has left at this point in his career. And as you were saying, Kirk Cousins has not gotten the full stamp of approval by Washington Redskins. Sure, he's going to make over $20 million this year, again, on a franchise tag, but I don't know if long-term he's their guy. So if I look at that handicap situation, I'll start with Dallas Cowboys, probably at the top position still. They did a good job in the draft addressing that defense. They have to find a lot of pieces that fit together. Defensively, of course, they're going to be missing some guys early in the season with suspension. But offensively, they have their three-headed monster that they always like to build around, and I think they're going to be a solid team. Washington Redskins, I'd probably put them 3 right now. They're a team, when you look at Kirk Cousins, yes, he's there, but Jordan Reed's always seemed to be hurt, and I wanted to see if Terrell Pryor coming over is a guy that's going to make some good adjustments. I'll put the Giants in the second spot right now. When I look at the Giants, as you were saying, the offensive line has to get more consistent. They have to find a running game. I think they're going to go with Perkins at the running back position. We'll see if he's a guy. But they did bring in some, their offensive firepower is just tremendous. And Eli Manning, I still think he has 2 or 3 seasons left in his arm. So, they got to build that defense up, but I think they'll be probably in the 2 position. And the Eagles, I know a lot of fans around this area are probably not going to want to hear it, but they're still number 4 in my opinion. I like what they did in terms of bringing in some wide receiver help, but I just don't like that secondary at this time. They gave up way too many big plays. They were in the bottom 5 in the NFL, giving up plays of 20 yards or more. And I want to see if these cornerbacks that they bring in, Patrick Robinson, the guy who's on his 3rd team, is supposed to be their number 1 corner. So they're going to have to get a pass rush to help out those corners.
Do you believe that the quarterback position, though, from year 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, where do you see the biggest jump when you look at quarterback play with young quarterbacks? Do you look at it from year 1 to 2, or do you say it's typically, year 2 to 3 or 3 to 4? Because I think the way Carson Wentz played last year, yeah, he's going to make some rookie mistakes, and there's going to be a couple things that he needs to clean up. We kind of know that, but for trading your starting quarterback 8 days before the season, and there was talk that you're going to redshirt Wentz or he's going to hold the clipboard, and then you throw him to the Wolves, and he starts off really well, and then he came back down to earth middle and then late in the season and put together, 2 nice wins against the Giants, and albeit Dallas had nothing to play for. Do you think that there's going to be more of an ascend, if you will, a nice little growth spurt from him from year 1 to 2, or do you think maybe we'll see it not this year, maybe next year?
And Q, everybody I talked to around the team is really planning on him taking the bull by the horns and being the leader of this team and taking that step up. We know the NFL now is a win-now league, and we've seen a lot of young quarterbacks come in first year, second year, and lead their teams to playoffs, a la Russell Wilson, who really took some steps forward his first 2 years. So the pressure is going to be on Carson Wentz. They have given him the weapons that they think can help him. We'll see if some of these receivers are able to gel. I know Jordan Matthews is a little banged up, but they're going to be counting on him a lot. And I want to see if LeGarrette Blount is able to carry the load, and are they going to kind of change that offense around to run the football more consistently. They always seem to be in that Andy Reid mode where the short pass is their run, and sometimes you need to have a sledgehammer, particularly in the cold weather. So Wentz has gotten everything. They gave Peters the extension. The offensive line should be in place, the same guys pretty much. And I think he'll take a step forward. He's got to cut down, though, on his interceptions. Had a lot last year, and I was talking to some guys that were at OTAs and mini camps, still was making some throws here and there that were getting picked off.
Last one before I let you get out of here, and again, appreciate a couple moments. How about Doug Pederson, year number 2 as the head coach? We always talk about the play calling. He's a guy that played the quarterback position in the NFL. He learned from some of the best, and then he was under Andy Reid's watch when he was basically an assistant, if you will, under Andy Reid in Kansas City. Now he comes in. I think there's got to be a little more balance set up, right, with some of the play calling, a little more consistency. But it's really hard, in my estimation, to say he's right away. I think he is under the microscope. I'm not going to say hot seat because it's only his second year. And the last thing you don't want from a franchise is they fire another head coach. So they go from Reid to Kelly to Doug to potentially somebody else. But what are your overall thoughts on Doug Pederson going into year number 2?
Right, and I'll kind of phrase it like you did. I wouldn't say he's on a hot seat, but let's face it, this fan base is very restless, and Howie Roseman, the general manager, and Doug Pederson, the head coach, are guys they're going to have their eyes on. They have not won a playoff game since the 2008 season with Donovan McNabb. It's going on a long time. They've invested a lot in the offensive weapons on his team, trying to bring in some guys to help the defense out, like Barnett in the draft. And so all the pieces seem to be in place. But as I was talking about earlier, NFC East, very competitive. And he's got to inspire some confidence when he gets to the microphone. He's got to show that he's the guy in charge. That's always what Andy Reid was like whenever I talked to him early in his career. He wanted to show everybody that he had the plan, and eventually he was able to execute it. I know he came up a little bit short, but it's time for Doug Pederson to kind of take that step forward and be that CEO type that people are looking for.
All right, my friend, good stuff as always. Enjoy the rest of the week. We'll talk next week, and we'll start to really dive into, I guess you can say, really the offseason and, the guys that are going to really be under the hot seat because, the list gets kind of long in the NFL time. So we'll have a little fun doing that next week. Appreciate a couple moments.
All right, Q. Thanks for having me.
You got it, Lloyd Vance. Always good to touch base with him.